Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads Radio. Sackheads Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Wow. So, this is fun, huh?
Listen, we're going old school. We literally have a cell phone in the middle of the desk, and our foreheads are together. We're practically Siamese twins.
We practically are at this
right now, which is kind of weird, but I mean, not really weird. It'd be weird, I guess, if our chest hairs intertwined or something. But we're doing this. The vein is like popping out of your forehead and pulsating,
and it should be. And I'll tell you why. I have never had more problems. I can't believe that we continue to pay Blog Talk Radio, and I know we complain about this all the time.
It's like a marriage.
It's so
Blog Talk is like no, I'm not going to say that. I'll get so much hate mail.
You can get that hate mail if you want. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, that Pally.
Right. Blog Talk is like, I can't even.
You know what? It's seriously, it's like
it's like a wife. I don't want to hear from her right now, so I'm just not going to listen. I'm going to completely shut down, and you're not going to be able to talk, and if you do talk, it's not going to matter, which is pretty much what was happening to us.
Well, exactly. And you know what's sad is Blog Talk is Blog sad. Talk in general.
Blog Talk Radio is sad.
But it feeds our Spreaker feed and our iHeartRadio feed. So when it goes down, the way that we have to configure it, everything gets hammered. Pisses me off to no end.
And it makes me want to get hammered.
It does that's actually not a bad idea. Maybe we should just get drunk tonight and call it a day.
Or listen, we have that bottle of whiskey. I say we drink live on the show.
Yeah, I love sleeping in the studio.
It's raining outside. It gets all snuggly.
Exactly. We could just turn around and say we were caught in the storm. I don't know. This is getting a little weird now.
Yeah. What storm? You're in California. You're not even in the Sierras.
We were stormed in. It was terrible.
Right. You got a dusting of rain. You're in a drought. What happened? Obama said it was due to global warming.
It must be due to global warming. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I apologize for the horrendous sound. I apologize on behalf of Blog Talk Radio.
I don't apologize on behalf of Blog Talk Radio. They can apologize themselves. I don't apologize for anybody else.
But it affects us. See, and this is one of those things, too. I
know
they
should apologize to us.
Exactly. They should apologize to us. And I'm going to have a strongly worded email with them. I may use the word damn a couple times.
I think, listen, you don't want it to get automatically round filed. You might want to go with darn.
Either way, it doesn't matter. What's important now is we're here. We have so much to cover, I don't know if I can even do it this way because it just feels weird, but we'll get to it.
This is old. This reminds me of the first podcast we did sitting in the living room
of
your mom's house.
It was my house, to be fair. To be fair, it was my house.
It was in the basement of your mom's house, and we were surrounded.
It was still my house. I lived there.
We had all the monitors on with World of Warcraft going. And you were asking for meatloaf. But
Mom, meatloaf! Oh, man. It's mostly down with BTR. I'll tell you,
I'm not down with BTR.
I'm not down with either. Here's the thing that bothers me, is we put all this effort into the show, we get things ready, we really want to produce a product that we're proud of, or at least a product that makes us laugh. I don't know which one.
Making us laugh is much more important, because if we take this too seriously,
right,
we'll lose all 3 of our listeners.
Right. And then to have this happen, and that was, 20 minutes of silence on a talk radio show? Brilliant.
It was brilliant. Do you know why?
Why?
Because that's what the American public is right now. They're silent. It was a metaphor for what's going on in this country, Sean. It was beautifully planned and beautifully executed, and I think we should celebrate and embrace it.
Oh, man. You do make me laugh. I'll give you that. Phone number is 347-205-9399. Fortunately, the chat room's working, and I thank everyone who waited through that disaster for everything.
You're welcome. I kind of kept us afloat. It was difficult to do.
The one thing you've ever done with technology.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I was typing correctly. But people asked what I was wearing. I told them the truth. I said a licorice thong and a shoulder holster.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. But somebody was wearing a black dress and stilettos.
And who was that?
You're just going to have to go back through the history and check, because I'm not giving that one up.
No. Well, I refuse. Listen.
Service like Blog Talk did us. And somebody else pointed out the fact that would be funny that Blog Talk did that just to screw with us.
Yeah, well, we kind of deserve it, I guess.
Or the NSA, which was my point.
Well, let's at least try to get back on point and get to topic.
No. So we're up against the break.
Yeah, right.
Listen. Okay. So I want to talk something out there real quick. I sent a link out to our folks that are in the chat room, just to kind of get a heads up if anybody had a chance to go get a look at what I popped out. But Admiral Nimitz's Gray Book was a digitized copy was released Monday by the United States Naval Warfare College. And you can get it at www.usnwc.edu/graybook. It's Gray book. And essentially what it is it's his operational diary from December 7th, 1941, so when they attacked Pearl Harbor, all the way up until I believe it's like 2 or 3 days prior to the Japanese signing the surrender. So it's his diary, his operational diary of the entire Pacific War. And the Naval Warfare College unveiled it in a ceremony. It was live on a cast via the internet at 3:30 Pacific.
Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good. All 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live. Must start and file in app by 2/18.
That trying to download it, it was completely down until Monday afternoon. I was finally able to download it first thing Tuesday morning, and I spent, it's about 1,800 some odd pages.
Oh, I whizzed right through that.
Yeah, completely. But look, I'm a huge fan of source documents,
right?
And we talk about this, and World War II has I have some ties, especially to Pearl Harbor and the European. My family, everybody knows who is from Hawaii. My grandfather was a Pearl Harbor survivor.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was a radio operator at Bellows Field, which was also attacked the morning of December 7th. It was on Oahu. My other set of grandparents was going to church, and I remember my grandmother saying she remembers walking up to the church and seeing some Japanese aircraft flying so low that a pilot, she swears, one of the pilots looked directly at her. She could describe him to a T. So I spent a few hours in this diary, and I didn't get past December 7th yet. And I plan on reading the entire thing, but just the information contained in it, talking about just detailing where the ships were and kind of what was happening with the attack and so forth. And I find myself reading a paragraph, and I would immediately be carried off to research something else. So if anybody has an interest in source documents, in particular the entrance of the United States into World War II and the Pacific campaign, I highly recommend downloading it and reading it. And it's scans of the original. It was declassified in 1972, but the Navy War College kept such a tight grip on it that
it wasn't readily available.
It wasn't readily available at all. And if there was a PRA request, some things I saw online from some people that got it said that a lot of it was done on what they felt may have been carbon paper or something, and so it was unreadable, illegible. These scans are so much better. But some of the information in here, there's a part that one talks about December 7, 1930 hours, execute WPL 46 against Japan. And so WPL is War Plan Long Range. Mm-hmm. And WPL 46 was a war plan that the U.S. had in case of war with Japan, and it was from Rainbow 5. And so in searching out these war plans, because that's one of the things I stopped and I said, okay, I know I remember hearing about this, but what is Rainbow 5? There was an entire color-coded set of war plans that the U.S. had, and I found it very interesting. In looking it up, Rainbow 1 was a plan for defensive war to protect the U.S. in the Western Hemisphere, north of 10 degrees, south latitude, where the U.S. was assumed to have no major allies. Mm-hmm. Okay, Rainbow 2 assumed that the U.S. would be allied with France and Britain. Britain. Rainbow 3 was a repetition of the Orange Plan, and we'll get into that one in a little bit here. Rainbow 4 was based on the same assumption as Rainbow 1, but extended the American mission to include the entire Western Hemisphere instead of being cut off. And Rainbow 5 ended up being the basis for the American war in the Pacific theater, and it assumed that the U.S. would be allied with Britain and France and would take place in Europe and or Africa. Then I found out there were other color plans. There was War Plan Black, which was a plan for war with Germany, which, okay, yeah, that's a good one to have. War Plan Gray dealt with Central America and the Caribbean. Didn't know that was such a hotbed of activity. I didn't realize the Caribbean uprising was something we were concerned about. Yeah, apparently it's huge. War Plan Brown talked about the Philippines. War Plan Tan dealt with Cuba. War Plan Red, this one was interesting. War Plan Red was a plan for dealing with Great Britain, specifically a British landing near Washington, D.C. Now, I know they tried that back in 1812. It didn't work out so well for them after they set the White House on fire. But there was actually a war plan for going to war with Great Britain, which I thought was very interesting. I mean, I haven't delved too much into that as far as what the political thought was at the time that they felt. I mean, maybe Great Britain was still pissed off at us over that whole, secession thing. Then you had War Plan Orange, which was for Japan, Red Orange, and this one was very interesting to me. War Plan Red Orange, the U.S. had plans. They were planning for a war against Great Britain and Japan. So they planned for a contingent, for whatever reason, where Great Britain and Japan were allies.
But it's kind of weird to think that somebody in the chat room is bringing up a decent point, is that, it could have been that if the UK was actually taken over by the Nazis, and that's why that was in place.
Yeah, but you still had War Plan Black for that, because that dealt specifically with Germany. If you read
overrunning Great Britain, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly, right. But if you read what War Plan Red was, there's actually a decent amount of information on it. It talks about the U.S. was concerned for whatever reason about Japan and Great Britain teaming up, or Great Britain having some sort of invasion, an Atlantic war against the U.S.
It's so weird to think that war back then was kind of like a round robin at a softball tournament.
Right. Look, my favorite is War Plan Yellow, which deals with war in China. Why would they name it yellow? I think it's racist.
Well, but War Plan Black didn't deal with Africa.
Right, well, because we had assets there, right? War Plan Gold involved war with France, so maybe gold because, we're solid. We don't need to really worry about it.
Right. Their plan literally consisted of the words, it's France, LOL.
Before LOL was actually cool. And then War Plan White dealt with the domestic uprising in the United States. I'm sure there's nothing like that today, so we're probably fine. I'm sure the military has no plans for dealing with us hostile citizenry. So just in researching some of this stuff, I had no idea that those even existed until I got into this. I'm excited because I'm only, like I said, several hours into this, and I haven't made it past page 10 because I always find a new caveat, and it's a source document from the time. Another thing that was very interesting to me was there's actually a study done where, not really a study, but there's a running summary of the situation with Japan, but it also talks about kind of the political implications with Japan and how Japan is set up versus the United States. in terms of what's happening politically at home.
Oh, right.
In the United States and Hawaii, and really the strategic mission that Japan, that they believed was trying to accomplish. So what it said, political factors involved. It's a political talk show, and it's kind of took me a long way to get there, but I'm here now. Some of the political factors that were quoted here, it says Japan is under more or less unified military control. And this is interesting. Listen to what's in this. Our government is more cumbersome for purposes of making war. The citizenry is probably well unified in support of the government in this war, but our preparations were delayed because we did not have a, quote, full emergency situation. Japan's connection with the Axis is useful as a means of diverting our strength. Our associated powers in the Pacific were woefully weak and much weaker today through having lost 2 capital ships. And those were 2 ships that were complete losses, not salvageable, and that they're talking about. And then they talk about Japan's economic factors. Our national economy is much stronger than Japan's. It probably was her desperate economic status which led to her attack to attack us. Each success in the Malay area will improve her overall status, provided she can make use of the economic accretions in time. Oil is the most critical supply for her. And then talks about our weakness. Our weakness is the losses of strategic materials from the area into which the Japs are advancing, and a financial status which may well cause trouble. The lack of resources of Hawaii and other island areas we must defend is also a weakness. It also talks about psychological factors. Japan probably started the war with a will to win based on desperation. Her initial success at Pearl Harbor, off Malaya, etc., will undoubtedly make her morale very high. Conversely, our losses, occasioned through not being the aggressor, will put a strain on morale, particularly as we probably will not be able to strike back very effectively for a long time. We're on the defensive. Japan has their strategic initiative. That is hard for us to take. So you not only get into the nuts and bolts of what assets were where, because there is a lot of that also, but you get into thoughts about, hey, this is what the commander-in-chief of the Pacific forces thought was happening at the time. This is what his thoughts on why Japan attacked, and kind of his thoughts on our position. And I'm so excited about this find. I wanted to share it with everybody. It didn't get a lot that I saw, anyways, of media play, which really disappointed me because it is such a huge asset. It is a big deal. It is, and And
even just plain historically, just for historical purposes. Never mind if, you wanted to learn from it or move forward or whatever. Just the fact that this is such a huge part of our American history, and here's somebody who is on the spearhead, if you will, of the Pacific War and World War II. And it goes back to reading it because it kind of, right, wrong, or indifferent, makes us who we are.
Look, yeah, it's like you're not reading history of what happened in the Pacific War from a textbook,
right?
Or from somebody else, right? Like almost literally, you could.
No, it's a huge find. I look forward to trying to read through it. It's really cool. I enjoy history, and I enjoy, especially from World War II, just because I said before, it was the greatest generation, in my opinion, or one of the greatest generations, if not the. And it really defines a lot about who we are and what we should be learning about our history. I look forward to it. Thank you for...
You're welcome. And like I said, I really look forward to delving into this even more. I wanted to bring it to our folks. We have a very educated listenership. Wanted to bring it out to them. I thought it'd be something that most of our folks should enjoy. And
speaking of naval attack,
did you get that lint out finally? You've been picking at that thing for like 10 minutes.
AFP about 4 hours ago, news group is reporting that a Russian warship docked in Havana today without explanation from the communist Cuba or its state media. The Viktor Leonov CCB-175 boat is 300 feet long and was docked at the Port of Havana cruise ship area near the Russian Orthodox Cathedral.
Okay, so a few things here. First of all, last time the Russians landed in Cuba, it wasn't that big of a deal. Even second of all, it is Havana. Hey, vacation. Third of all, it's right by a cathedral. So there are a few different possibilities for why it's there. What's the big deal?
It's a Meridian-class intelligence ship.
Meaning really smart people are on it?
No, it's a spy ship.
Well, it's not doing a good job. We know you're there. You're supposed to hide or something.
But it's weird how, like you said, when was the last time a Russian ship, marked Russian ship landed in Cuba?
Landed or, pulled up to?
Pulled up.
Because that would be kind of weird if it landed there.
Yeah, because that was an a-hole for your whole Nimitz thing.
Well, look, you brought up landed. I didn't. It painted a picture for me.
But it's weird how all of a sudden Putin's now putting intelligence ships 90-something miles off of our coast. Now that the Olympics are over, and that kind of, because he didn't want that, I don't know if that was part of the plan. I don't want this to overshadow the Olympics. Make sure you land the day after or two, something. But it's just bizarre how all of a sudden they're interested in putting intelligence ships off our coast again.
Why would they do it so out there, though? I mean, they obviously had to know we were going to know it's there unless they wanted us to know it's there.
Well,
right?
and Iggy in the chat kind of beat me to the punch, but is this in coordination with the Iranian ships that are allegedly somewhere in the Atlantic right now? Or something to that effect? Are they there to give support? Are they there to share intelligence with the Iranians? It's an intelligence gathering ship. It's that makes me concerned. You know what I mean? And this isn't, and they didn't tell anyone. Usually when we send ships into ports that are questionable or vice versa, a lot of the countries kind of make the announcement. Hey, just so you know, we're going to be sending 3 of our ships to the dock of Existan or whatever to do refueling, blah, 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 blah. This time, it was just completely silent. Hey, all of a sudden it shows up. I don't know if we knew ahead of time it was there or not, but there was nothing in the media that allowed it. And it's what we talked about a few weeks ago with China. It's like Russia's testing the waters, like Iran testing the waters. And is this a test, or is this just business as usual for the Russians? I'm going to say it's a test.
Now, I would be more concerned if they had done other things like fly bombers right up to our airspace, or if they'd have parked like a nuclear submarine in the Gulf of Mexico. Then maybe I'd be more concerned.
A little bit more nervous,
right?
Yeah.
But until
this is totally unrelated.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure what it is. Listen, maybe Cuba had some athletes. Cuba had some athletes in the Olympics, and they needed a ride back home. down, their plane broke down, and they needed a ride. And Putin, being the good sport that he was,
being the hell of a guy that he was,
right? Putt just wanted to give him a ride.
So I'd like to see what the White House's lack of response to this is going to be, and you know, are they going to come out and say, "Oh, we knew they were going. It's not a big deal. We were watching them the whole time," or is they going to come out and either tough talk it, you know, or are they going to come out and do nothing at all?
Do you really think Obama's going to tough talk?
No, I'm just hoping maybe someday.
He's going to apologize. Hey, listen, I'm really sorry that we didn't refuel your ship
on
the way
our
to
media
Cuba.
is making a big deal out of this, and don't hold our media accountable. We're trying to control them with the FCC.
Right.
We haven't got there yet like you have, so go easy on us.
We tried putting some people in their rooms to kind of make sure that and we tried to do it ahead of your ship landing there because we knew it was coming, but we got such big pushback.
Welcome to America.
Yeah.
So going from one communist state to another, Cuba, have you been following Venezuela at all? And there's a couple reasons why. A lot of people haven't. And not only do we buy a lot of oil from Venezuela, so the turmoil that's going on there, I think is something that needs to be watched for, but the citizenry in general, it's kind of like what's going on in Kiev, Ukraine, who apparently has been semi-straightened out, but not completely, where they're a socialist country. They're under that idiot Hugo Chavez. And
Baby Hugo?
Baby Hugo.
Doesn't he kind of look like Baby Hugo?
He does. He did. Now I think he just looks like ant food. He does. He looks just like ant food and work food right now. The current president, Nicolas Maduro, is continuing with his socialist ways. I think they called it the Bolivia movement or whatever. But it's going to drive up we buy a lot of oil from Venezuela. They are a socialist/communist country, depending on who you talk to. But it's also another country where they went to socialism, straight socialism, like 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. And it's a newer thing for them. And it's taken that long for the people to start revolting against the socialist government. And that's something that I wish we in this country would pay attention to. And part of me feels that that's one of the reasons why mainstream media doesn't draw a lot of attention to this. You know, Kiev was a little bit different. It was about their trade agreement. Who are they going to trade with, the West or Russia? You know, freedom or a puppetry system. So that's why Venezuela is a lot different. It's starting to be that revolution against socialism, against communism. You have a pretty much a self-appointed government that has all the control, all the might. You have a rather disarmed citizenry. I was reading their gun ownership. It's not that high, but guns are pretty much outlawed. And now it's been only 10 years, and they have all this oil. They should have a ton of money. They have a lot of oil. Now it's been 10 or 12 years, something like that, and the citizenry is starting to revolt. And that's a real big indication as to how bad the idea of socialism is. And they're a fairly modern society. I wouldn't say that they are probably a good comparison to us in every dynamic, but overall they're a fairly modern society. They had decent wealth prior. They have a lot of oil to export. They deal with some embargoes and stuff now because of some of the things that they've done. But we've actually spoke out against it, which is amazing to me. Against the opposition, I believe, our government, the opposition leader who's, for everything I've read, listen, I'm not saying I know the guy and he's an angel, but he's trying to bring the country back to more of a constitution, a free republic constitution type thing. He's not, I don't think he's the best guy on the face of the planet, but I think he's the lesser of the two evils in the people's eyes. It goes to show you when socialism is enacted in a country so harshly, and so quickly, it was a quick changeover. It wasn't like they're doing to us now, where it's piece by piece by piece, and we, you know, that nudge like we've talked about Cass Sunstein, where you eventually get used to the idea. This was almost like the, hey, tomorrow, by the way, you work for us, versus working for yourself. So I really want people to pay attention to Venezuela and watch our gas prices in comparison because they're going to go up. But watch how the government reacts when the people in a socialist country start to fight back and push back. And, you know, people are dying there just like Kiev, and it's not getting nearly as much media coverage, which to me is the most amazing thing in the world. You couldn't turn on the TV in the last 2 weeks without seeing something about Kiev and the Olympics. Venezuela, you look for Venezuela, it's like a cricket. You know, you kind of have to dig down a little bit. So it's a big indicator as to what happens when the people get pissed off and the government runs amok.
So what's happening in this country? Because the government's running amok, but people haven't caught on yet. Off.
They're just not pissed off yet. And they're not pissed off yet because half the country's getting shit for free, and the other half of the country is too busy working. And there's still a percentage of them. I mean, we've said it time and again, 50% of this country doesn't work right now. They don't pay taxes. Most of them don't work. They're on some sort of assistance. The other 50%, believe it or not, a percentage of them are Democrats, and they're too busy talking about how wonderful they are and how they're helping everybody else. And I have a great clip to play after the break about Obamacare. And I really think a lot of conservatives are just sick of talking to that blue in the face.
Red in the face. Blue would be Democrat. I mean, I guess there's a lot of blue in their face.
I don't mean that. I mean, I
know exactly what you mean, but I don't even think it's just conservatives. I think it's regular Americans who may not label themselves Democrat, Republicans, or whatever, right? They may have a union job or whatever it is without getting
in that middle ground.
Yeah, without getting too caught up in the politics.
I met two gals the other night who talked about the show, and I was under the impression they were independents, but they worked for the federal government. However, they agreed a lot with what we talked about in the show, like overwhelmingly.
I bet they didn't consider themselves conservative either.
No.
It's amazing how that works.
I know. It's almost like you don't want to say you're that, even though you appreciate everything that
you
is.
can't say you're conservative because, you're one of those. Because that's
what's happened to us in this country.
You're programmed,
We've
right?
had that stigma put upon us that we are these crazy right-winger, everyone needs a gun, which I believe they do.
They do. But most people do, in fact, need a gun. So, yeah, you do have us there. But let me put your liberal butt in a dark alley with 3 people who are trying to do violence upon you, and I'll give you a rape whistle.
Right. No.
Or a gun. You pick. You can pick. I'll give you your pick. Right.
Well, and it's one of those things, too, like we talked about. We went back to what's the most important thing? Small government, spending individual liberty. Pretty much. I mean, that's everything, for the most part, that conservatives were. And I talked to them about that. Do you want a government so big that you have what's going on now where it's just spending money hand over fist, there's zero oversight, nobody has control? Or do you want a government that's responsible and answers? And I said, let me ask you this. You work for the government. If you screwed up your job tomorrow, do you just get a free pass? And she said, well, no. And I said, exactly. I said, you actually have to be responsible. I said, you get to a point in government where the people at the head of these agencies aren't held responsible when things go south. Look at what happened with IRS and Lerner. She was allowed to retire. You know, and so I went from there and I just built it. And by the end of it, they both said they were going to tune into the show and listen because they liked what we had.
Well, welcome to the show. Look at California. California is a perfect model with a huge government run amok.
Yeah.
And I just like saying amok because it's fun to say amok. But there's a serious push, and it's actually gaining steam, for the state to split into 6 different states.
Yes. Now, I am excited for that idea.
That's going to be very, very difficult to do, to split the California government up into 6 different states. I like the idea of it. I think the transition would cost a lot of money, and I think it would be very, very messy. I'm a huge supporter of either adding more representatives to state government because Californians are underrepresented. I don't think they've added representatives to the state legislature. And I heard a statistic. I have not verified it, but I've heard since like the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, we're still in line with that.
But the population's exploded. Now, I have not verified that figure to be fair, but I believe it to be accurate. The other side of that is there's a very real argument for splitting the state of California, at least into two states. The state is just way too big.
Yeah.
And you have...
Geographically speaking.
It is, geographically speaking, and population-wise. But you have two major population centers that dictate how the entire state goes in San Francisco and Los Angeles. And San Diego to some extent also, but particularly the Los Angeles region and San Francisco Bay Area.
Well, that's why a lot of people don't even know that Sacramento is the capital of California. They think that Los Angeles is. And that's serious. You talk to a lot of people because they know that a lot of the values of LA get enforced in Sacramento.
Well, yeah. And do you know what the capital of Alaska is?
Anchorage.
Juneau. See how I did that? But kill me. I'm here all night, folks. I
love having to take the fall for a joke.
I know. I think that is what you're talking about as far as people's values, and we're talking about, look, even people may not label themselves as conservative or Democrat, Republican, whatever it is, they're just working folks, but they have a vested interest in society. A lot of them have values and beliefs that are consistent with most conservative
values,
right? And that's why jump vote is so important, and
voters trust,
yeah, because it kind of pulls those values together in people with different backgrounds. But man, I think that's why some of these initiatives are gaining momentum.
Yeah, and I think it's a very big tale as to people are aggravated, and now we've seen this on a federal level with people, after the last election and with the passing of Obamacare and the implementation, you had states talking about seceding from the union. And granted, it didn't pick up a lot of steam, but that talk was there, which I don't remember that talk ever being there myself.
No, we talked about that before.
And you look at the cost, the subsection of the comparison, you have California, which has a pretty in-line comparison to the country. It's got some numbers that are off, but it's a good dissection of the country in comparison, and you're starting to see them wanting to break away that big out-of-control government. They just had I think it was a state senator who just got thrown in jail, he just got arrested.
He got indicted federally, right?
Federally for taking huge bribes down the LA area. Why? Well, the government's run out of Sacramento, and there's no oversight down in LA, and he can play all these games all he wants, but they're just the fact that that's big government. That's what happens when you have big government. When you're a full-time legislator and you all you do is run around, find a reason to pass a law to pay yourself, and if you can scam, you do it. And that's unfortunately what happens a lot in big government versus a part-time legislature or a small government where, hey, we're just here to do the work that needs to get done for this one session, and I got to go back home because I have to go to work.
Right. I have to tend to my business.
Right.
Or whatever it is.
I serve because I have to do whatever.
I serve because I want to serve. Not because it's a career.
Right.
Public service should not be a career unless you're military or public safety or something like that. Then you know what?
Or one of those, or support one of those jobs, or I understand why people who are like financial people can make a public career out of it. If your job
I'm talking about elected officials.
Elected officials, there's no reason for it to be a career choice. It's not supposed to be a career choice, and that's the problem. So I just thought that was interesting that that's come up. We do have to take a break. Hopefully the show will still be here.
That was a 40-minute segment.
Was it really? Because
yeah.
I'm looking at 37 minutes, 15 seconds right now.
Was I an a-hole when you had your whole freaking
Hey,
stuff
folks,
there?
thank you so much for hanging with us through this turbulent times. 347-205-9399 is the phone number. We're actually going to try to take a break. We'll be back at 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show.
The Reactionaries Speak radio program.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. you know the thing about chaos? It's beer.
Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, here on BTR.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
Hello, I'm Lori, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Dr. Larry Arnn on how the founders viewed God as the source of our equality and legal rights.
America's founders knew, obviously, that human beings are not equal in terms of strength or beauty, or in terms of intelligence, industry, or talents. They understood that because of such differences in talents and things like that, some people would be wealthier than others. But human beings are equal, the founders believe, in their possession of natural rights, such as the rights to life, liberty, and property. Today, many Americans reject this equality of rights in order to pursue equality of condition through redistribution, or spreading the wealth around, to use a famous formulation. This is destructive of liberty as the founders understood it.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Now back to Clint and Sean on Sackheads Radio, radiating elegancy and quality.
Yeah, I'd like a large coffee with nothing in it.
Okay, that will be $743.
What are you, crazy? I just want a simple coffee.
Well, sir, in order for the government to allow this establishment to sell coffee, there are certain minimal essential coffee benefits that they are required to provide.
Like what?
They are legally required to provide milk, a travel mug, a straw, and numerous other items that the government has deemed necessary for you to have.
Okay, first off, I don't want a straw, I don't want a travel mug, and I don't want any milk in my coffee. I just want a simple coffee.
I don't think you understand. This is for your own safety.
I don't care if you think it's for my own safety. I'm responsible enough to drink coffee on my own. The only thing that I want is a basic coffee. That's it.
Well, the government has deemed it necessary for you.
Thanks, but no thanks. I'm just going to go to another coffee shop and get exactly what I want.
What is that going to get you?
That's going to get me a coffee.
No, you don't understand. This is a government mandate. Any coffee provider must comply with these regulations or their license to do business will be revoked.
Fine, then it looks like I'm not going to be buying any coffee at all.
Hold on there, not so fast.
What? I'm not going to be purchasing any coffee. It's a free country, isn't it?
Of course it's a free country, or at least we like to tell you that. You're free not to purchase this coffee. However, not doing so will require you to pay 1% of your yearly income as a penalty.
What? I make $50 grand a year. That means I have to pay $500 to this coffee shop to not receive any coffee in return?
Of course you won't have to pay this coffee shop $500. That would be ridiculous.
Oh, okay, good.
You'll have to pay it to the government. And then the next year you'll need to pay $1,000, the year after that $1,250, and then whatever arbitrary number the government wants after that.
Okay, this is some kind of joke, right? Where's the hidden camera?
We had to institute this policy because some people needed coffee, whether they could pay for it or not, and it had to be provided to them. This placed an undue burden on everyone else, so our solution was to place an undue burden on everyone else.
Well, who forced the providers to give away the coffee for free?
Well, the government required it, whether those people could pay for it or not.
So there was a problem created by forcing vendors to provide free coffee to people. And now the solution to that is to force other people to purchase more coffee at ridiculous rates.
Well, you might want to have coffee in the future, so we need to make sure that you pay for it now, whether you actually want it or not. We like to call it the individual shared responsibility payment. It sounds like a contradiction in terms, because it is. Every time you buy coffee, we need to take most, I mean some, of that money and provide coffees free of charge to those who we think need it, and also to people who consistently vote for us. Plus, we can then use that money to purchase a website for millions of dollars that simply won't work.
Wouldn't it make more sense to just let me pick what I want to buy and the provider pick what they want to sell and let us handle it amongst ourselves?
But then how would we pay for programs that you don't want?
They are insured. But not everyone must prove they are a citizen. Now add this, many of those who refuse or are unable to prove they are citizens will receive free insurance paid by those who are forced to buy insurance because they're citizens.
Yeah, it's absolutely insanity. And like I said, the thing that got me is the first Democrat that saw this, they try to argue the fact that, well, you don't need to buy coffee. And they sidestep the reality of the situation of, this is Obamacare, they just changed it with coffee. Everything that's in there is Obamacare. It is the truth. And it is ridiculous only because it's coffee.
Right.
However, the price for the $748 for a cup at Starbucks isn't that far off.
It's not that far off at all, actually.
But I choose, when I go, to spend that money because I want coffee. And I am one of those 6 SOBs that probably would spend $500 on a cup of coffee because I'm sure at some point the government will ration it. So it's a great clip. It's a great website, reasontoday.com. They have a whole bunch of other really funny things on there.
Just hope that there's not a big uprising in Colombia.
Oh, Lord, I'd be in trouble. You know, I honestly, I'm one of those people, I could go without gas.
But not coffee.
Not coffee, ever. I'd be hosed if coffee didn't
Have you ever, now answer honestly, have you ever had a cup of Sanka?
Yes.
Or U-Ban?
U-Ban, no. Not that I know of, but I've definitely had a cup of Sanka.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have also had a cup of Sanka.
I think I had Sanka with saccharin in it.
I had Sanka by itself.
Oh, my.
And I just stirred in some water, but U-Ban.
It was U-Ban coffee. Well, and I think Sanka was one of those things that the first time I drank it, I took the first sip, and I was young. I was probably like 15. I was like, oh, my God, this is terrible. So I just kept adding scoops and mixing it in, hoping at some point it would get better, and it was like mud, and I had to spoon it into my mouth. It still sucks, but I drank it.
But you continued to drink it, and hence your love affair with coffee began.
So that was the funny side of this week in Obamacare news. Now let's go to the ridiculous side. Harry Reid.
Our favorite. Do you remember the word study we did?
We did do a word study. We were on Ken's show. For those who listen to the Exceptional Conservative show, we called in the Ken show before our show tonight. And Clint did our history on the word study we did, and he presents it so well that I want him to do it here for everyone.
Okay, so look, there was we did some study into Harry Reid's last name and the original meaning behind it. For those of you who may or may not know, and I can personally verify its authenticity. Nobody else can, but I can. And we found that the last name Reid in Harry Reid's lineage actually comes from the Latin root word jalapeno, meaning penis. So his name literally means hairy penis. We believe. So, yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that because there may be a couple flaws in the research that we've done.
We just spent production money to actually say that over the air. But it never stopped being funny.
So what did Harry Penis say today?
Well, I have specifically right here.
Were able to buy a free health insurance they could afford and they could trust. But despite all that good news, there's plenty of horror stories being told. All of them are untrue, but they're being told all over America. The leukemia patient whose insurance policy was canceled would die without her medication. Mr. President, that's an ad being paid for by 2 billionaire brothers. It's absolutely false. Or the woman whose insurance policy went up $700 a month. Ads paid for around America by the multi-billionaire Koch brothers, and the ad is false. We heard about the evils of Obamacare, about the lives it's ruining, and Republican stump speeches and an ads paid for by oil magnates the Koch brothers. But in those tales, turned out to be just that, tales. Stories made up from whole cloth, lies distorted by the Republicans to grab headlines or make political advertisements. Mr. President, these two brothers are trying to buy America. They not only funnel money through their Americans for Prosperity, they funnel money into all kinds of organizations to do the same thing that they're doing. They're trying to buy America. I don't believe America's for sale.
No, but Harry Reid is, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, Harry Reid would be for sale for a second. So this is how you know we're getting into election phase, folks, is because the Democrats are going to start talking about buying America
with big money.
They're going to look to the Koch brothers.
How did Harry Reid get elected?
Probably
not
purely grassroots.
Purely grassroots.
Yeah, no support from
no
anybody.
fundraising or anything.
Yeah, zero fundraising.
From
we probably
wealthy
didn't get any donations from the DNC.
I'm pretty sure he just went out.
I'm sure Soros didn't give him $1.
I'm pretty sure Reid went out and literally walked door to door.
Yeah. Listen. First of all, he's talking about these the two stories. One where the woman had to pay the money for the leukemia treatment, the other one
whose premiums went up $700. But he said all.
Right.
All single one is a lie.
Yes.
He calls American citizens liars.
Yes.
If they speak out or have a negative story about Obamacare. Basically is what it is. There are no negative stories about Obamacare, and if there are, the person is a liar.
So I'm a liar.
You're a liar.
Because my co-payment, my initial plan got canceled because I got it within the last 4 years.
Right.
And my payment went up. It's 22, I did the math, it's like 22.3%. That's just my monthly co-payment. My actual payments for doctor services, ambulance rides, etc., went up almost 35%.
I want to speak to the people that Harry Reid represents. How does it feel if anybody has a negative story about Obamacare in Nevada? If anybody has a negative story about Obamacare, how does it feel that your elected representative, the person who elected is supposed to represent you and your state?
You're his boss.
And he's telling you that you're a liar.
Right.
He's chastising you, speaking down to you, discounting your personal experiences in your life and the things that you have going on, the struggles that you're dealing with in your day-to-day life while he's sitting up there in Washington, D.C., espousing his nonsense. And he's telling you that you're a liar. Your concerns don't matter. If there's anything negative going on, it's completely untrue. It's a figment of your imagination. It's a horror story being spun by you, the evil storyteller, for the purposes of scaring fellow Americans. Because you're evil. Not only are you a liar, but because you're doing it to scare fellow Americans out of something that's good for them, you are evil. You personally are destroying this country, and your representative is putting all of that on your shoulders. How does that make you feel? And my next question is, what the hell are you going to do about it? Are you going to do nothing? If somebody were to talk to you like that and to call you that and to challenge your honor to your face, what would you do? Maybe you would let it go.
Look at it this way.
Or maybe you would stand up and defend your honor and do something about it.
It's almost like, and you can have all the evidence in the world to show how much Obamacare is costing people now, but picture you have cancer and you beat cancer. And Harry Reid now walks into your living room to your face and goes, "You're a liar. You never had cancer." You're like, "No, look, I have all this evidence. I have doctor's notes. I have scans. I went to chemo. I had to recover, blah, 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 blah." No, you're a damn liar. The Koch brothers are paying you to say this. What would you do if he was standing nose to nose to you? You know, I know he gets to hide because he gets the microphone in Washington behind armed guards and all this other stuff. And when he does go back to Nevada, he makes appearances in a safe place. He would never go to the Nevada RNC to have a discussion with people who disagree with him because he'd get torn apart. But you know this is full election mode. You know this is full defense mode of Obamacare because the numbers are going to come out. Look, once again they put up yet another mandate. They're doing everything they can to not enact this law completely because they know it's going to be a disaster. They're in public opinion mode where they're trying to beat it back and say, oh, no, you know those evil Koch brothers, you know those guys that employ millions, hundreds of thousands of people and put food on the table and give people benefits and vacations. And I'm not saying they're perfect individuals, but I'm just going to look at the fact that they support the right, and I'm going to tell you that they're the evil monsters that they are. And then I'm going to cherry-pick stories out of things that I can prove there may be a slight exaggeration to, specifically, not overall, and I'm going to cherry-pick those two and talk about that.
And say they're all liars.
How about the fact that Bonehead Biden came out, what was it, last week? I think it was Thursday last week, and they were talking about the numbers for Obamacare. They wanted to shoot for that 7 million by March, and now he's saying, the hell with it. We may get to 5, but that's pretty damn good, and I think that's the exact quote. I'm not kidding. He said something to that effect.
But he meant 5, not 5 million, right? He meant 5.
Well, so he said, we got 5 million, and that's going to be pretty damn good. So you're going to be 2 million short. Of that, I think it's going to be a larger percentage. I think it's like 35% of those people are not in that age group that they need to be. That under 35 that's going to pay the big amount of money. And 4.8 million of those people at last check were the ones that lost their coverage
to begin with.
So what did you gain?
And how many of those are enrolled in
Medicare.
So you didn't gain any. Once you start taking those numbers out, you don't gain anything. Another thing I like is Reed, and it doesn't show in that clip, but he tells Americans, listen, don't focus on those horror stories. They're all lies. Focus on the true stories.
Yeah.
The stories that Obamacare has helped. Those are the stories.
Let's look at the overall things that Obama has done and look at all the truth. The Obama phones.
Yes.
That one woman does never have to pay her mortgage again.
Yes.
Let's see. What else has come true? Guantanamo's been closed now for 6 years?
Right.
Closed. Guantanamo is absolutely closed.
Yeah, absolutely closed.
Haven't had another terror attack.
Nope.
The economy's bouncing back like nobody's business.
Yeah, gangbusters. It's rolling.
So, Reed, you're an a-hole, and we always say that. You don't come out there and just and you insult. That's the best part is you will stand there in our Senate talking to the Senate president and entering into the congressional record and lie and not even bat an eye about it. He's such a professional sack of crap. Douchebag is a good one. That he can lie about it. But the other thing
and he's never held accountable. This isn't the first time he's done this.
Ever.
His own constituents do not hold him accountable, and I'm so surprised at that. Nevada is not the bastion of liberalism. I mean, I know because of Las Vegas really kind of swings things.
It's kind of like California.
But Nevada is not the bastion of liberalism. How is he allowed to do this?
I don't know.
He's the poster boy for why we need term limits.
He's the poster boy to why we need IQ tests.
He's the poster boy for why we need integrity in our elected positions.
Absolutely. So I listen to this a-hole like him, and blows me away, like you said, that there's no recourse. Nobody bounces back and goes, hey, Harry, you know what? Don't go out there and lie to the American people. If you want to point out what the merits of Obamacare has done, and you want to talk about those few people that maybe got a better plan, and I'm not saying they don't exist. There are a few people that have a better plan.
I'm sure there are.
But overall, again, we passed this giant law for a very small percentage of people. But don't go out there and lie through your teeth and expect not to have – and I don't even see – I don't even see the big conservative media really jumping on him for this.
Oh, there was huge flashback. The Republicans came out immediately and hammered him on this.
But it went away quick. It was a flash in the pan. It was not – this needs to be highlighted. These quotes need to be taken into the next election. Somebody needs to immediately come out and show all the numbers that disprove it. And just once again prove why Harry Reid is just such a D-bag. He drives me nuts.
These quotes from Sackheads Radio should just be played over and over again during that election cycle in Nevada. Harry Reid is a D-bag. Harry Reid, Latin, root word jalapeno, meaning penis. I mean, those would just be classic. This is classic stuff right here.
And then, you know,
and to be fair, if a Republican came out,
I'd hammer him too.
And
lie this guy.
Yeah.
You just don't do that. You don't do that as an elected official in this country.
You don't talk down about the American public with saying they're liars and a blanket statement like that.
Exactly. And talk to everybody. You know, like you said, throw that blanket over. And then, you know, I listened earlier. I was listening to the Ken show before you showed up and tried to steal my thunder by jumping in on my call. No. But he had this great young gal her name is actually Katrina Pearson, and she's running out of the 32nd congressional district.
Why is it too liberal for her?
I guess. She's got Sarah Palin's endorsement, so I'm telling you, she's doing something right. But as I listened to her, and I think one of the quotes that I typed into his chat room is, I said, I wish I could have 1 million Katrina Pearsons running right now. She hit the nail on the head as to what everything is wrong in Washington, D.C., people like Harry Reid, and just how horrendous it is. And that's the problem, is it's not just Harry Reid. I know he's the figurehead that we attack often, but it is a lot of members of our government. It is a lot of members of Congress. Look at Jay Carney. You want to talk about coming out and lying to the American people. If he was Pinocchio, his nose would be in Kansas right now. I mean, it's ridiculous, you know. I think he had to grow that beard to hide, like, his lie marks on his mouth. Like, I don't even know. It's so freaking bad. This administration, the most transparent administration, remember that? Oh, yeah, how many times do we hear that? When have they been transparent about anything? Let's look at Benghazi. You know, and Harry Reid, I don't care what you say, Harry Reid is as much part of this administration as Jay Carney is, as the president is, as Biden is. Mm-hmm. There has been but lies and non-transparency from the beginning. And as I said on Ken's show, I said, we've been hoodwinked. This was the ultimate false advertising scheme on the face of the planet. And they fell for it not once in this country, but twice. And then you wonder why Harry Reid has the balls to go out and call the American people liar, because they get away with it. Voters don't pay attention. They let them get away with this sort of thing, and they reward them how?
By reelecting them.
By reelecting them repeatedly.
Now, Katrina Pearson, I have not done a lot of research into her, but I'm sure she's just another white male. No, just rich white guy.
She is just
right.
another white male. How did you even say that?
Look, because I know if she is running from the right and she's one of those Tea Party extremist terrorist people, that she has to be some white guy, probably balding, rich, came from a lot of money.
One of the Koch brothers.
Silver spoon in her. Matter of fact, she is one of the Koch brothers, but in a wig. I'm pretty sure.
Not
Am I wrong?
No. She's gorgeous. Just to throw it out there.
Okay.
She's absolutely gorgeous. She's a single mom.
No, she can't be a single mom. No, because that would mean that she was self-made, and that would mean she would have to be a Democrat because she's one of the people.
She's almost like, remember how I forget which comparison we made the Superman and Bizarro comment a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
She is the Superman, or Supergirl, Superwoman, to Wendy Davis's Bizarro.
Okay.
Everything Wendy Davis said she did,
right,
Miss Pearson actually appears to have done.
But that can't be true, because obviously if she would have done those things, she would be a Democrat with a huge heart. She can't be some heartless, conservative, business-owning white guy who's a complete racist.
Bamboozled, beguiled, suckered. Rooster's just going through everything that we've been. Rooster, all of them are correct in the chat room. They are all correct. And here's a young gal who gets ripped apart, and they've gone after, and I said this, I think, in the chat room, they've gone after so much more than just her politics because they're afraid of her. And they can't stick to just her politics because there's really nothing bad in her politics. She is who she says she is.
Yeah.
So what have they done? They've gone after her personally. And I said that's exactly how you know that she's on the mark and that they're afraid of her. And she needs to get there. You know, Ken made a great statement about can't wait for her to raise her right hand. I agree. She's one of those folks that I can't wait till she gets elected. I hope she gets elected because she is all that's right with the world right now.
Look, she's a potential rising star in the conservative movement.
Absolutely.
Right now. She really is. I mean, she believes in limited government, fiscal responsibility, the rule of law, all of those horrible things,
constitutionally things.
Those extreme ideals that make her the domestic terrorist that she probably is.
Right.
I'm guessing. Otherwise, she would be totally endorsed by everybody.
She is getting endorsed by her. And I'll tell you, she's a name soon that you're going to see really pop up. And
listen, a hurricane was named after her, okay? She's coming with a vengeance, all right? She's sweeping the nation, folks.
She does have a storm surge. Now,
how'd I do? Was that good?
That was great. Not over the top. That was not over the top.
Okay, so I nailed it. Listen, Katrina, you can go ahead and use that in one of your ads.
No, I really don't know if they want to make that comparison.
With like a picture of Bush flying over. She wonders for her campaign.
Anyhow.
Are you okay?
No, that was awesome. That was like a softball. It was like Bugs Bunny. You were the gas house gorillas, and I was the old man pitching it. But to get back to my point is you have Harry Reid who says things like that because he's been there for so long, and it's almost like he can just say whatever he wants, and nobody really questions him on his own side, and how horrible that is. And then you have the antithesis is this young gal who is all that's right, and the changes that she could make when she gets to Washington, and I believe that she will make when she gets to Washington, it gives me hope is what I'm saying. It gives me hope that all is not lost just yet, but we're getting there.
You know, and we've talked about this before. You look at the conservatives are really gaining ground still. I mean, you had the Tea Party came into being, midterms 2010. They kind of went down in 2012. And now with everything that's happened since the 2012 election, the things Obama has continued to do and this administration has continued to do in terms of overstepping their constitutional authority and so forth, you're seeing a resurgence again of the Tea Party. And look, I think the conservative movement could have a big midterm election this year. They really can, especially if things continue going down this road how they're going, and Reid makes these ridiculous statements, and the progressives and the liberals are making the ridiculous statements that they do. You're seeing more candidates like this that are really self-made, really of the people themselves, not endorsed by big money, not endorsed by not career politicians. And I mean, look at there's a Tea Party caucus right now.
Yeah, and it's growing.
And it's growing, and there's a reason for it. So I'm a little encouraged. Again, and it doesn't have to be Tea Party or whatever, but just the fact that this conservative, libertarian, small government, individual responsibility, rule of law movement is gaining ground.
This whole Constitution thing's starting to catch on.
I want to see Biden say that. That's what I want to see Biden say. This whole Constitution thing's really freaking catching on. Who knew, eh, Barack? Maybe we should swing that way for a little while.
AB?
Yeah. Bring it on, Hillary. I want to see him debate Hillary in the Democratic primary and then give her a little slap on the ass before he walks on stage. I dare Joe Biden to do that. And then call her Toots.
Ken in the chat room said, the only sad part would be imagining Boehner standing across from her as she's getting sworn in. And somebody in the chat room, I think it was Agador, said, I'd rather see him in a waist tub full of piranha covered in a meat suit. Just that image. Just his round skin just all yellowed out and piranha swimming everywhere. It just made me laugh. We're against the break.
I just think we should call him Meat Suit.
Meat Suit Boner? I don't know if we can get away with that one.
Oh, I think we totally could.
Well, we'll see.
Let's draw a cartoon.
347-205-9399. Back in 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
The Reactionary Speak radio program.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's beer.
Friday night, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, here on BTR.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog at conservativeoutcry.net. Now, back to the Sackheads.
And we're back here on the Sackheads Radio Show. So we do have one more subject that I want to discuss prior to us taking call. I know Rooster's on hold. I think Ken's going to be calling in. If Ken does call in, he goes first. I'm just saying. If Ken calls in, he goes first. I want to do this for me. Apparently, I need to recover, is what everyone's been telling me lately.
Well, listen, so basically what you're saying is you personally are instituting affirmative action. You unilaterally, without a vote among the Sackhead triad.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, Obama. Hey, you got a pen and a phone.
Hey, I do have a. Thank God I had the phone. We wouldn't be doing the show tonight. Right. And my pen's leaking.
That's not your pen.
So they had the bill that was passing in Arizona, and look, everyone knows what it is. The long and short is that it was protecting business owners refusing service to people based on religious reasons. Jan Brewer, it was passed by the House and the Senate in Arizona, and Governor Jan Brewer came out today and vetoed it, and this is what she said.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining me here this evening. I'm here to announce a decision on Senate Bill 1062. As with every proposal that reaches my desk, I give great concern and careful evaluation and deliberate consideration, and especially to Senate Bill 1062. I call them like I see them, despite the cheers or the boos from the crowd. I took the necessary time to make the right decision. I met or spoke with my attorneys, lawmakers, and citizens supporting and opposing this legislation. As governor, I have asked questions and I have listened. I have protected religious freedoms when there is a specific and present concern that exists in our state, and I have the record to prove it. My agenda is to sign into law legislation that advances Arizona. When I addressed the legislature earlier this year, I made my priorities for this session abundantly clear. Among them are passing a responsible budget that continues Arizona's economic comeback. From CEOs to entrepreneurs to business surveys, Arizona ranks as one of the best states to grow or start a business. Additionally, our immediate challenge is fixing a broken child protection system. Instead, This is the first policy bill to cross my desk. Senate Bill 1062 does not address a specific or present concern related to religious liberty in Arizona. I have not heard of one example in Arizona where a business owner's religious liberty has been violated. The bill is broadly worded and could result in unintended and negative consequences. After weighing all of the arguments, I have vetoed Senate Bill 1062 moments ago. To the supporters of this legislation, I want you to know that I understand that long-held norms about marriage and family are being challenged as never before. Our society is undergoing many dramatic changes. However, I sincerely believe that Senate Bill 1062 has the potential to create more problems than it purports to solve.
So she vetoed it, and we talked off the air as I read into this. I do agree with her at a point that I thought there was a lot of loose language in that law. I didn't think it was as specific as, but we also talked about the need for that law.
Yeah, the point came up is there's already a right to refuse service law in the state of Arizona. Correct? Right. So why that law almost seems redundant, because if I have the right to refuse service to anybody, why would I need this law? I didn't really have a problem with the law, and here's why. I believe that as a business owner, whether I agree with this decision or not, so before I get all the hate mail, which I actually love getting hate mail. We need to start reading that again. But not that whether I agree with it or not, that's not what I'm talking about. But I believe a business has a right to refuse to serve whoever. It's a private business. Right. It's if I own a business, if I choose not to serve somebody for whatever reason,
then my business suffers and just my business.
Right. My business suffers, and if the people want to take it out on me, and that's a decision I make for my business, and it costs me my livelihood, or I lose some business, or whatever it is, that's my decision to make. I either rise or fall based upon my business decisions, but I should be free to make those business decisions.
You're 100% right. I look back at Chick-fil-A, and when the CEO of Chick-fil-A made statements that weren't anti-gay, however, it was spun into anti-gay. Right. He was sharing his personal beliefs, which he has every right in the world to do.
Yes, he does.
Especially, the other thing, too, is when it becomes steeped in a religious value, we have that freedom and protection in this country to begin with. But people did what they had the right to do as well. They chose not to go there.
Right. Which I support. Right. If you choose not to give your business to a place for whatever reason, then that's on you. That's on you. As a consumer, you're free to do that. That's what the free market is about.
As we kind of talked about the coffee thing earlier.
Oh, I'm an extremist. I said free market.
If you turn around and said you have to go to these certain businesses, or if the state or government passed a law, you have to buy, that we would be just as pissed off about it. So I think if there was a specific case that had come up that was being cited as a reason to make an addendum to the business protection law, and I could understand the need for passing something that would be specific. Listen, if somebody walked in and said I had the right to refuse service, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to serve you today, and that person sued, and some lunatic judge, much like the Pruneyard case back in the 70s in California, if you look that up and see how ridiculous government shows that private businesses can be.
Have a beer or a shot ready to go.
Yeah.
It will make you angry.
It will make you angry.
Unless you're a progressive, then you totally high-five yourself.
Then...
You just pictured it.
Yeah, I did. It was kind of funny. But if government made that decision, or if they had to make that decision based on a ruling where a liberal judge said something ridiculous and the state legislature said, all right, well, now we have to add this because obviously
checks and balances.
The checks and balances need to come into play. That's one thing. I do think that she made the right decision today, and it was for the right reason, that it's really not doing anything more than what's already in place is kind of what I took her statement as, that the language could be twisted in a lawsuit one way or the other, and that it wasn't really up to par for what she thought it needed. She did, and I haven't seen it before, but she did say that she has a history of protecting religious freedom, which I am all for. I don't believe that anyone has the right, as we talked before, whatever you do in your church, as long as it's not hurting or killing somebody else, I think that you have the right to do that.
Right, and as long as it's Catholic. But other than that,
no, I haven't grown up in a Catholic church. No, you can practice whichever part of Christianity that you want. But I believe.
Look, you go to St. Ignatius, St. Rose. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You go to whatever church you want.
Immaculate Conception.
Boy.
Exactly. Our Lady of a Worthless Miracle. Making gun, anybody? Anyhow, but to get back, that's steeped in the values of our Constitution, that religious freedom. And no more do I think that a person has the right to sue and or impede a business because they make that choice based on religious reasons.
I agree. Now I'm going to throw a curveball. Okay. Just for the sake of getting conversation going, so folks, before you bite my head off, just understand that this is where it's coming from. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. So if Arizona wants to make a law establishing any kind of religion or making a religious law, they have every right to do so.
Absolutely.
Under our Constitution.
Absolutely.
They can say everybody has to go to a Catholic church if you're going to go to a church.
Right, and as we said, Pennsylvania had it.
Right. Now, back when
Quakers.
Back when the Constitution was originally ratified, there were states, I believe it was Pennsylvania, actually had a state religion.
Right.
But, judges now have taken that to, we can't have any government religion. You can't even have a cross on a church.
I am also,
somebody might see it from a
I am also a big supporter, and I am not as religious as I once was. I am a big supporter, however, that children in their own time should be able to pray in church, and no one should be able to tell them no.
In school, you mean?
In school and in church.
And in church.
I don't ever want anyone to
should be able to pray in church.
Once they cross that line, I'm going to be pissed off.
Right.
But seriously, in school as well, and I don't think that there should be any feedback for it.
And as long as it's not taking away from class time.
No, like I said, in their free time,
right.
Recess period, or whatever. As a matter of fact, I would even take it a step further, and based on the transgender bathrooms that they have in California.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this.
I would like to see them have a special place where kids who want to pray during recess are able to go, so they're not to be ostracized by the other kids.
I like it, and it's a non-denominational reflection space, right? So if you're Buddhist, or if you're Shinto, or if you're...
Good one.
Do you like that one?
Yeah,
high five. Nailed it. If you're Christian...
Progressive.
If you're progressive, whatever it is, you can go there. You can... Muslim, right? If you want to face your mat east, make sure the room is oriented east. Whatever.
Make it a circle.
Right. With no compass at all, no windows, so you can't tell which way is east. Really screw with them.
And the walls revolve.
Look, model it like an opium den. But a non-denominational reflection space.
Right, but why should that not be allowed?
I like it. You know what?
If you're going to allow
Let's put a bill forward.
Ooh. I'm going to write
that down
right now.
Let's put a bill forward in California.
Prayer
and see how far it goes. No. Non-denominational reflection, personal reflection space. Because it sounds kind of progressive, right?
Feels like a suicide box. Suicide box.
Sacco says it sounds like a suicide box. We need to talk after the show, because that's what you got from it.
You're missing it.
You're totally missing it.
Reflection. No people go in.
No, I don't know if anybody looks at it.
No.
I reflect on how awesome my life is.
So that's our spiel on that.
Awesome.
How incredibly amazing.
So incredibly awesome.
It will be at 6:30 tomorrow morning, too, I'm sure. So we do have two of our esteemed guests on hold.
Take Rooster first.
I couldn't do it.
Do it.
Nope.
I'll push the button.
Our good friend Ken from the Exceptional Conservative Show joins us right now. Ken, you heard him say it. He wanted Rooster first. I had a veto.
I appreciate that, but I defer to the senior senator from the great republic, Communist Republic of Maryland. Rooster.
Hey, Ken. Hey, Ken, I got to ask you a question. Is your outro music from the movie Shaft?
You know, when I play the outro music, I put on my bell bottoms and my shoes with the goldfish swimming in the little glass hill.
I'm going to get you, sucker. Yep, I'm going to get you, sucker. I got music.
I love that.
But I just want to say this real quick before y'all go to Rooster.
Yeah.
You know the real problem with that law?
You go first. We're not giving you a lot of time.
Oh, okay. All right. 30 seconds for the black man, 3 hours for Rooster. Okay, I'll say. All right, well. Racist. No, there are two real problems with that particular law. Number one, it was dealt with on a surface issue when there's really a deep matter that has not been resolved since the Civil War. And that's if government can tell you what to do with your property, period.
Yeah.
And so until we get resolution on that matter, we will continue to have this fight. The second one is that whether we like it or not, religion is a protected class.
Yes.
Gay and lesbian, QRSTUVWXYZ is not protected at the federal level. The problem here is if you begin to make behaviors protected classes. So that opens the whole schism up to any and everything, and we will have the total chaos that will bring this particular nation to its knees. There should be no special privileges for the gay and lesbian community.
You make an outstanding point, Ken, and I would take it a step further and say, why do we need special protections for any class? For example, why is it a hate crime if somebody beats up somebody of another race and race is the motivation of the attack? Why is there a stricter sentence? Why does a particular group of people get a special treatment under the law by harsher sentencing and so forth than somebody who maybe commits an assault or hits somebody because for whatever reason? They would kind of like,
to go even further with that, with the NFL. Michael Sam sucks as a football player at the NFL level. But do we have to draft him because he's gay? Is government telling American businesses that you have to do what we tell you to do? And if that's the case, then we have already crossed over into Marxism. You can just lay your bodies down at this particular juncture.
Yeah, we can have a whole discussion on the NFL. I mean, look how they postured with the whole Arizona law. And Arizona, they outlaw, they don't allow guns at their stadiums for people who can lawfully carry them and so forth. I mean, there's the NFL is clearly a progressive liberal organization, but I don't think that any class of people should have any special protections because we are a nation of laws. Everybody is supposed to be treated equally. That means equally protected as well. The laws should be applied equally. One group should not get a harsher sentence, or somebody should not get a harsher sentence because they attacked somebody of a particular class that the government deemed needs more protection. That is absolutely ridiculous to me. Exactly.
In the case of the NFL, if a player comes out and says he's gay, do you hit him as hard as a non-gay player? Do you put like little flag things on them so you pull their flag and it's considered a tackle? But if you play with someone who's a heterosexual, you actually have to tackle them. But we're creating imbalances here, and we need to stop it.
I go back to, I understand the use of the NFL, but again, it's a private industry. They can do whatever they want.
No, they can, but it's a symptom of...
Right. I do understand.
Not according to the law.
But
government owns it.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the way it's deemed.
You know what? I mean, what's going to happen? Are we going to start making people of certain classes wear armbands? That was tried. Did I say anything? It did not work. It didn't work out well. So that's a bad idea.
Well, you know, and I go back to we've had the discussion time and again about gay marriage and us saying that the federal government should not be determining marriage at all.
No government should license or have a say in
marriage.
Right. I mean, unless it's adults, consenting adults. Hey, marriage, in my opinion, is between two people and God.
Right.
And if that's, two people who are of lawful age, because minors do need protection, they're unable to fight. I don't care. I may not personally agree with it. I may not attend a church that practices those ceremonies, which is my right. But it's not for me to say you cannot marry that person, because if that person's religious belief is that God sanctions that type of union, we do live in a country that we have religious liberty, and if their church recognizes that and that's a decision that they're opting to make, the government should have no say in that.
Yeah, the government is getting too far into social issues, and my initial conversation, especially about when it gets into gay marriage, and the whole argument that a lot of people in the gay and lesbian community have is we want to have the same rights as straight people. Well, when it comes to marriage, I take it a step further and I say, well, at what point does the government have the right to legislate any sort of quote-unquote love? How can you legislate what's love? You can't. You can't say, but they have all these tests for it. You guys have to live together, get mail at the same address, blah, blah. Government does not belong in your home and in your church.
Unless it involves a can of Crisco and a rhinoceros, I'm pretty sure it's okay.
And even then, protection laws come
into play. So.
And I don't think you're allowed to have Crisco anymore, according to the FDA, because it's too high in fat.
However, too high in fat. But I want to add this right here. Really, what we saw this week is who holds power in America. You have the lobbyists of the progressive industries. You have the capitalists, crony capitalists, and you have a immoral legislative body that's corrupt. Who doesn't hold power in this country? And this is why I hope that Katrina wins her election. Small businessmen and women, individuals and entrepreneurs like ourselves, because there are cases where individuals have. Now, I'm quite certain that when Kodak made one camera, it made 1 million. So you could easily find another cameraman for your wedding. But what they did was say, hey, I'm going to force you to work with me. That's communism. And what we're allowing to happen is this wishy-washy approach to homosexuality, which is the only disease that the psychiatric community was able to dissolve through a voice vote. They certainly didn't do it through medical care. You're using that particular behavior to now rule and to allow government to institute the necessary laws and constructs to take us completely over the barrier into communism. And no man, no government, and no industry should have the right to force you to work for anybody for any particular reason.
They don't have that right. It's something that look, rights come from God. I believe in natural right, as I know you do. We've had these conversations before. The government doesn't have the right to do anything. They have a responsibility to do a very limited number of things, and that's certainly not them. But look, we're being pushed more into a Marxist direction than people really realize or pay attention to. And look, let's look at the labor movement. And in the labor movement, what do you hear the people referred to? It's the worker. And they're not talking about the worker as an individual. They're talking about the worker as a class. And that is very much in line with the Marxist thought, the Marxist ideals. And if anybody who's read the Communist Manifesto, and if you haven't, I highly encourage you to. Otherwise, you're just going to think I'm some kind of paranoid freak, which maybe I am to some extent. But it's that philosophy, and it's oozed throughout the progressive movement and really been co-opted by the Democratic Party. That whole concept of the worker as a class of people is very Marxist, and there's Marxist communist undertones throughout the progressive and the Democratic Party, and it's becoming more and more overt as time goes on, because nobody is standing up and calling them out on it. Look, it was, 30, 40 years ago where it was you could not be a communist legally and hold office or do anything in the United States. I'm after we read that code, it's still in the United States Code.
Right.
It is a reason. Yeah, it is a reason.
It's kind of like immigration laws.
It's a reason to be excluded from public office.
Hey,
but
real quick, and I don't want to cut you off. We're obviously going to run over because we haven't taken Rooster's phone call yet. If everyone wants to listen in overtime, 347-205-9399. We appreciate it if you jump over there. We'll take. We'll do what we can to make it more interesting for you. The other thing, too, that I really think is insanity to me is all the other different things that get classified and declassified. And, you know, I'm a big believer that part of the problem in this country is that psychologists and shrinks have added all these different orientations. And I think it was Iggy in the chat room who said now scientists are actually considering pedophilia and orientation over versus just being straight evil. And, you know, what they do when they do that is they are accepting or legalizing criminal behavior, or not necessarily legalizing, but making criminal behavior more acceptable, or other behavior that was once an illness more acceptable. And the overall is it's self-importance, because if psychologists started saying, no, this person's not crazy, they're just evil, and then they wouldn't be needed.
Well, here's the thing: if you admit that there's evil in the world, you have to admit that there's good in the world. And if you believe in good and evil, that's very much that has very much religious undertones to it, right? Because you start going down that path, and they're not. A lot of people that buy into this are atheistic, and they believe religion to be magic and old-fashioned and all these other things. So that's why they have to explain it other ways, because there is no evil, right? Evil is relative. Evil is a manifestation of what religion says it should be. It has that moral code, which is vital to our country and vital to the success of our country. It's what makes us really who we are and why we've been as successful a people as we have been, and why we continue to be the most charitable nation in the history of the world.
The most amazing nation.
As always, Clint, you are absolutely right. And I'm just waiting for the time period when people will openly say that our Constitution is for a moral people, not an immoral people, but for a moral people. And what the problem is that we have legislators who have taken on immorality, have been corrupted by their influence, their access, and their authority, and are now deciding that they would rather rule as religious leaders in a democratic theocracy than to submit to the Constitution itself. You are absolutely right, Clint. There is no place for government inside my church pew or inside my bedroom. Now,
well, and the other thing that we've done is we've taken things that were once immoral and made them moral, quote unquote, through law. And that's something, and we can go down the list of things that have been accepted okay, and or we, like I said earlier, we've disguised them as some sort of mental illness in order to keep those people from being jailed.
Well, let's think about this. If homosexuality was a mental illness, and Obama wants to have mental illness as a way to get your guns, does that mean that homosexuals would not be able to own guns?
You got it. You got it. They saw this a long time ago.
Yeah, so I guess in a roundabout way, Obama is trying to arm homosexuals.
No, he's trying to disarm everyone. He's trying to disarm everyone. When you begin to look out logically, what it took politically for the homosexuals and the GLAAD groups to work to get to this level where they are more feared by conservative commentators like Rush Limbaugh and by your government than any other class of individuals, then you understand that they recognized a long time ago that we need to jail and we need to take advantage, and since this is you people's History Month, they had to take advantage of the hot ticket that was going in that direction to give them the same type of energy to take care of the legislation needed to become a protected class. and that was the Civil Rights Movement. And their joining that Civil Rights Movement in 1965 helped them get to this particular point where they could possibly eradicate your right to religion and your right to freedom and liberty.
Absolutely, and by doing so, we're going backwards. Look, there's this class system has been created, and I know the Democrats like to point to it as an economic class system. What they've really what they've really done is have a class system, but it's more of a classification system. We're cutting the group of black, white, homosexual, straight, religious, Christian. There's always a title for everything.
Well, what did I say?
We're not just Americans. And that's the problem. As long as there's these divisions that are in place and there's a black caucus, God forbid there's a white caucus, but there's a black caucus or a homosexual group or whatever it is, if the labels went away, if we could outlaw labels and everybody was just an American, you're not a Democrat, you're not a Republican, you're an American with a specific point of view, I think you would have people that would get along because there's a psychological impact to being put into a box. When a child is learning, when they're growing up and they're learning that, hey, you fit this group. You're white. You're not one of us. You're black. You're with this group. Or you can't speak out about that group. You start putting up walls and barriers. That is a learned behavior. And that's by design because in order for the government to control us, they have to keep us separated. We have to fight about things that about things that really should not mean anything to us.
Well, it's the same thing that Karl Marx. It's the same thing that Karl Marx and the Communist Party of the United States. In order to take advantage of the Democrat Party, we have to make certain, since we're all in agreement, we need tyranny. Since we must separate and divide, we're all in agreement here. And you hate Negroes like we hate Negroes. So we can work together. The best thing that we could do is create a caste system, one that's built on economic disharmony, and you all are already upset on racial disharmony. We can come together and we will break this country apart and eliminate the Constitution, which requires there to be harmony, not only of the economy, but also of us being a moral and civil nation under the law.
Yep. And you know what's weird is if people actually studied what the founders said about the Constitution and the kind of nation we would be, regardless of whether they were Federalists or Anti-Federalists, that is a common theme. We were meant to be a moral people.
Yeah. Well, and you start looking, too, one of the other things that I worry about, too, is you start dividing all these classes out, as we have in this country, and then what happens? You bring in that one person, that one figurehead who says, I'm going to help us get all together and come together as a nation. With the problem is that group there is what's keeping us apart. And I'm afraid that the conservatives are going to end up being that group there, is that all these different classes will be brought together by a figurehead, and I don't know if it'll be the next 3 years or beyond, but the conservatives, and I don't want to sound crass, but, it's going to be Germany in the 30s again. He brought
Hillary I trying to put together a great campaign. We're going to make the nation proud again.
So I understand. How did Hitler and Goebbels unify a nation? By having a common enemy, and I think that's how we centralize power. And that's what I fear is going to happen. Is they're going to throw class and class and class and class and class. Then they're going to put forward that great communicator, that person to bring everyone together, that orator, that one person to get everyone charged up. Then pick their enemy, use that as the reason to get everybody else together, and then go from there. And so it's a weird fascism, Marxism hybrid going on with an end result that for you and I and Clint and Sacco and those of us who are friends and love each other, we're screwed.
Well, you know what? I want to say that to this. Hillary is Stalin, and Obama is Lenin. And the bottom line, hello?
Yeah, you're here.
Oh, I lost everything. Okay. The bottom line is this. In order for us to really fight this fight. We have to stop worrying about what other people think about conservatives. And like you said on the show, Clint, forgive me, Sean, earlier tonight on my show, is that we have to come together as conservatives from all parts of the country and work in the general theme of rebuilding this nation as a republic, built on moral principles, built on the Constitution, and built on the principle that all men are created equal under the law, that there's no specialness that's necessary.
I couldn't agree with you more. And if you talked about Stalin and Lenin, does that make Biden Mussolini?
No. Biden is that guy on Hogan's Heroes who says, "I see nothing, I see nothing."
No, wait. No, that's true. Sadly, Biden is more Clink, where he's always trying to be this great leader, and everything gets screwed up. Oh, that is awesome. Hey, Ken, we're going to jump over to Rooster. Cool. Or I can bring him in, but it's always tough with four of us at once.
I understand. Good night and God bless. Love you all.
Hey, we love you too. God bless. Great show. And if you don't have a chance tonight, go online, listen to Ken's interview on the Exceptional Conservative Show with Miss Pearson. Ken is one of the greatest interviewers. I don't care what anybody says. And if you listen to his interviews, he really engages his guests, and he really, really makes it a wonderful interview to listen to. Ken from the Exceptional Conservative Show, Monday through Thursday. We love him, and we thank him absolutely so much for joining us tonight. Well, I knew it was going to come to this at some point, and I guess it's like pulling off the Band-Aid. That's the only thing I can really get to.
Red, white, and blue. That's a joke, son. A flag waver.
Our dearest and oldest friend, Rooster, from Outcry Radio, Saturday nights here on Blog Talk Radio, 11 o'clock Pacific time, and from conservativeoutcry.net. Rooster, sir, how are you this evening?
All right, thank you. And that's up now, right? All right, thank you. Hey, what's up, guys? God, I love technology. See, what you people fear, I embrace. I have just now, within the last 20 minutes, created the website, Rooster's Bakery, serving Arizona's gay community for 20 minutes now.
And that, my friend, is why I love you. You're a sheer capitalist.
I am. And Sean, I have to say, I heard you earlier, and I think the quote was, I wrote it down, you're free to practice any form of Christianity you see fit. That's mighty white of you.
Well, Rooster, I grew up as a Catholic, and
as did
having that experience, now I understand why there are other religions, other parts of Christianity besides Catholicism. Yeah.
I remember I had Sister Mary beat your ass as a teacher once. Hey, listen, guys.
Yes, sir.
Hey, this whole gay marriage thing, don't you think it's just smoke? I mean, why even pay attention to it at all? They want us to pay attention to it.
Well,
because then you're not paying attention to anything else.
Exactly. And I did talk about this, I think, on Ken's show, or if not, I meant to. That's the other – tonight. That was the other problem with this bill is if you're running into 2014 and the elections are coming up, what you just did is give them ammunition on the left to turn around and talk about how conservatives are completely anti-gay. And they're going to use this bill time and again. Jan Brewer is going to be lambasted by the left progressives as this anti-gay, hating, religious kook.
Well, that can't be because she vetoed the law.
But why?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you picked this. I actually on my show last week I said it was going to be immigration. That's going to be the issue that they clamp on to. I think, and I did an article where I said they need to move on immigration now. And you know what I want to see them do? And I want to see them take the Immigration Reform Act of 1986 that was passed by Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill and put it back before Congress. Because everything that everybody's yelling about right now, it was already done back in 1986. And all the fixes that they're screaming about now was done in 1986. So you just bring that bill back and say, vote on this, and then we're done.
But Bruce, one of the things you don't understand is if they did that, people would realize that Congress is kind of useless and all they do is recycle old. Look at Obamacare. Obamacare was Hillary Care.
And before that, it was Carter signaling that he wanted to move towards socialized medicine.
Yeah, I mean, and if you go back, history does repeat itself.
But you know what? You know what the problem is? Is that it's only been 30 years and it's repeating itself again.
Well,
I'm amazed that we're going back only 30 years.
Well, you look at the Civil Rights Movement and the Civil Rights Bill, which was pushed through by conservatives, and as much as Democrats love to latch onto that,
the Republican Party.
Yeah. But that bill was put forth 8 years earlier or 9 years earlier, and it was vetoed by Democrats and shut down by Democrats, LBJ being one of them, until he could gain political power from it. And that's exactly what all this is. Like you said, it's a smokescreen. It's a delay tactic. You look at the mandate and the Obama delays, it's amazing to me to hear all the defense coming out now on why the president can choose to enact a law or hold off parts of the law legally.
He can't.
Well, but people are coming up with some insane reasons.
Because they're ignorant.
Speaking of Obamacare, did you guys have Catherine Sebelius running the board tonight?
No, we just she let us borrow the company that does websites for them, and they were going to run the board. No, you know what is Sarko spent the last 2 hours on this, and it's Blog Talk Radio.
I've
our
been
phone
with
work,
them too.
But we're getting no return on our other interface for our mics and our soundboard and everything that we use every single week.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting no sound return and no sound out. But I can hear all the prompt beeps, but we're not getting any sound. So it's connected, but it's some sort of wiring issue on their side, and believe me, they're going to hear all about it by tomorrow afternoon, because I am going to run through there like a machine and scream and yell. So, but yeah, you look at all the different smoke screens that they've done and all the stuff that they run interference on and then pull out when it's convenient for them. And that's another thing. You know, I go back to your show a couple of weeks ago, and you're so right, is the conservative message is so lost and it is so poorly packaged that it gets run over because they have the emotion. They have those emotional, quote-unquote, arguments.
I think that it gets run over because it's not prepackaged.
I think they overthink it. I really do.
I think the conservative message gets run over so much. Look, the progressives and the liberals are so organized. They've been at this for so long that they really know how to effectively message. The conservative movement is truly grassroots. And we touched on it earlier in the show when we talked about kind of, hey, when we talk to people, there's similar beliefs. But people don't want to believe they're conservative because of the negative connotation with it. But it's the true grassroots people that feel this way in a lot of areas. And look, the working class folks, people like us, don't have time to organize and form all these different coalitions and formally get message across and do all these things that the progressives have really been good at doing, and I think that's why the message gets lost.
Well, we're not a party. We're not a party of social organization.
We're not, and that's the thing. Yeah. But that's why the message isn't out there. We don't have media outlets that are kind of in our back pocket. We don't have the big groups that are special interest groups that talk about our political message as mainstream America. We really don't, and I think that's why we get run over.
Well, and the other thing that happens is when you do get money and you do get people that support that, you get what Harry Reid did with the Koch brothers. They lambaste them. Hey, the Koch brothers have dumped a lot of money in the grassroots movement to give them that ability to step forward.
Yes, but here's the thing. It's kind of like if SEAL Team 6 were to go in against Boy Scout Troop 850.
I understand
because
that.
Boy Scout Troop 850 has more numbers, but they don't have the training or experience to be able to deal with.
No, I understand that, but what happens is the left does two things. The right doesn't use that money as effectively probably because they don't have, like you said, that organization. The left does have that organization, and as soon as you go after the folks on the left that buy elections for them, Soros, etc., people, they land-based you as a lunatic, as a nut, as a
right.
You know,
the right doesn't do that.
Right.
We're more principled. The right has typically, and I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but typically there are more ethical arguments being made. There are a lot of leaders on the right, specifically the Tea Party leaders, that won't stoop to the kind of rhetoric that Harry Reid, for example, does. And so because of that, look, the uninformed listen to that rhetoric and pay more attention to it. That, coupled with the organization that the left has and the progressives have, I think really is what has given them the advantage and has allowed them to pretty much run rampant.
But I also think, though, that's
in
why,
California and in the country.
But I think that's why Reid makes comments like he did, because he knows that nobody gets to Soros and the money that gets dumped in their elections.
Of course he does.
And he knows if he land-based the Koch brothers, he can shame them maybe into not dumping in much election.
Either that or get people to say, oh, yeah, big money Republicans, here we go again.
Exactly.
Because that's, what do we see? Big money Republicans. Hey, aren't you rich, Sean? Yeah. Hey, I am, right? We're huge big money Republicans, you and I. But that's what the
worst.
That's what the stigma is, right?
Sacco shows up in his gas-powered Tesla. He has the only one.
Right.
Clint, I have a question for you.
Right? It's like Tea Party extremist. When that word extremist gets inserted, we've talked about that before.
It's an emotional. It causes that emotional reaction. Your brain automatically turns around and says extremist equals bad.
And that's why Harry Reid does it, right? Big money, rich, millionaire, Republican, typical big money hungry white guys, right? Just like that Tea Party candidate running in Texas. Problem is, she's an African American female,
single mom,
self-made,
grassroots, smart as
I'm just going to say American. I used a label. I hate using a label, but I did it to paint a picture for folks out there who may not know who she is, especially our liberal folks out there. She's a black female, conservative, single mother who put herself through school and is running on this agenda.
Yep.
So, hey, Clint.
So what was your question?
I just have Clint, have you heard my show?
Yes.
Did you hear last week's?
No.
Okay. On last week's show, I actually pulled up some old clips, and what I pulled up was I chose Ronald Reagan, and I've been using Ronald Reagan as a backdrop for the last couple of weeks for a reason. But I actually pulled up some clips of Ronald Reagan during his first press conference as President of the United States compared to Barack Obama. And I pulled up clips of them both answering a question with regards to Iran. Almost the same question, to be honest with you. And when you listen to that compared to Barack Obama today, or any politician today, not just Obama, I just used him because he was easy. That'll show you how to wrap a message up.
Yeah.
Clear, succinct. Where Obama or Boehner or Reid or Cantor or any of those guys take 20 minutes to answer a question, Ronald Reagan did it in one.
Well,
he didn't mince words.
Reagan wasn't trying to sidestep.
No, exactly. He was not trying to sidestep.
Integrity stood on principles.
But the problem with the conservatives.
Ooh, I love to dance a little sidestep. Now they see me, now they don't have.
Yeah, I love that. The problem with conservatives today is they don't know how to box. All they want to do is fight. And it's kind of like in a hockey game. And Sean, this is actually a good reference. The penalty, the first one's never called. It's always the second one. So Harry Reid coming out and doing his deal today, that's not going to be called. But what the people or the misinformed are going to see is just a retaliation. So a good example would be, you remember when Mitt Romney was in the debate and Benghazi came up and Candy Crowley did her thing? Yeah. What he should have done, instead of going after Obama, which he didn't do either, was just go back to Candy Crowley and say, "Oh, he did. Please, can you inform me how he did it?" And put her on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in essence, you also put him on the spot, but you do it in a nice way. And that's the problem. Ronald Reagan never used the words Republicans or Democrats. He never pointed people out, so to speak. And that's the problem that I see people doing today. And next week, or this Saturday, I'm actually going to talk about Reagan and his first months or even first year in office and some of the things that he did to fix an economy that ain't worth a shit, and problems with Russia and Iran. It's kind of the same things that are happening, right? Putting back together a depleted military, which Obama's about to do.
You mean he inherited a terrible situation and turned it around in a year and did it like a leader?
In fact, if we weren't in today, right now, it could have almost have been called the greatest economic disaster since the Great Depression.
Yeah. And sadly, like you said, history's repeating itself sooner than we'd like to see. And if we don't listen, I think we're in trouble in 2016, because if we don't get that Ronald Reagan or that somebody who can really save us and bring us back from the brink, and we talk about it and we haven't really mentioned it much lately, and it disgusts me to say, but we are on the brink. We're getting closer and closer to that brink every single day. And until we have anybody that can come up and step up and have principles and foresight and be able to have a discussion and not be an a-hole, then we are in a bad way, and we need to start looking now.
We need somebody who's going to go back and abide by the Constitution and to be a principled leader. We talk about that all the time. We need to start actually living by our rule of law. And look, one of only a few things are going to happen. People are not going to wake up, and we are just going to evolve into a socialist country, and then we're going to argue up and down along the big government spectrum, right? We're going to argue communism, fascism. They're both big government. They're both big government forms of government. Which way do you want to go? Communism or fascism? It's not true left right. It's up down along the scale. From zero government or anarchy all the way to full government.
Do you want you punch in the nose or you punch in your face? Where do you want it?
Exactly.
But the Republicans are going to have to stop acting like idiots.
Or there's going to be an issue that's going to be so divisive, and maybe it's immigration, maybe it's 2A issues, but there will be an issue so divisive, and you're going to have states and counties, like we're already starting to see, put legislation through to secede and really start forming Congress's hand. And now what do you have? Do you have a rebellion? Do you have an insurrection? Do you have a true secessionist movement where duly elected representatives of the people are trying to pull away from a tyrannical government? Look, insurrection is not the answer. A group of just individual people taking up arms against the government. Insurrection is not the answer. Armed resistance is not what I'm advocating here. But what I'm saying is, do we enter a time like we were in during the American Revolution or during the American Civil War, where duly elected representatives of the people, governments, are trying to pull away from a tyrannical or a perceived tyrannical government, in the case of the Confederacy, trying to pull away from the Union, or the colonies pulling away from Great Britain over whatever issue, taxation, states' rights, or 2A immigration, like you say, Rooster, and that we could see a potential civil war in our lifetime. It's absolutely possible.
I don't think we're there yet. I think 2014 is a key. It's not 2016. 2014, the Republican Party needs to win big. If they don't win big, it's going to flip again in 2016.
But
what they need to do is put Barack Obama on record. He needs to start using his veto pen and explaining to the American people why he's doing certain things. Even if we don't have
nobody's going to force him to explain it. He's done enough to at least warrant an investigation, a congressional investigation.
But all you have now All you have now are
he may have done enough to warrant impeachment based upon how he's acting outside of the authority of the Constitution and ignoring the rule of law.
I agree, but I'm not
misinformed.
misinformed.
For that.
I'm not misinformed, though, and that's the people you need to get to is the misinformed. All the misinformed see are 37 votes to repeal Obamacare. We know they want to repeal it. We know they don't have the votes, so why keep taking that vote? You know what I mean?
To put themselves on record for re-election. So that
But they
can
put
go back
themselves
to
on record by the second vote, don't you think?
I think so, but otherwise it looks like they're doing something, right? I'm not saying
it looks like they're doing absolutely nothing.
Great idea.
It does nothing but strengthen the opinion that they're an obstructionist party.
You know, I think what it does is they can go back, and the Democrats that voted against the repeal would say, hey, you voted, you say that Obamacare has issues or whatever, yet you voted against the repeal of it 13 times, whatever it is.
Right. But
So
you can make the same argument with 2 votes as well. I just think they need to be better about what they're doing. They need to learn how to box instead of just fight.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Rooster. I'll agree with that.
Hey, Rooster.
Hey, what?
Our time is coming to the end, sir.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, did you see my boy got kicked out of the game?
Yeah. What was up with that?
Oh, well, they were exchanging pleasantries.
See, that's the problem is the big government doesn't like it when people talk and try to solve the problems themselves.
He wasn't the only one to get kicked out. It was ugly.
Oh, well, I feel bad for the other kid.
Well, no, it wasn't. One of our kids checked somebody and he broke his shoulder.
Well, that happens in hockey.
It does, but they thought that we did it on purpose, and then they went head hunting, and then we went head hunting, and then all hell broke loose. And
so, in other words, it was a good old-fashioned hockey game.
Yeah, and then my son, he hit somebody, and then he threw his hands up in the air, and then acknowledged the crowd, and that's what got him kicked out.
I wonder where he gets that from, Rooster.
I don't know. I don't know. So, Clint, when are you going to call in and be a guest on my show?
As soon as I have a Saturday night, as soon as I have the opportunity to call from where I am on Saturday nights.
I have the perfect question for you. The same question I posed to. I got the perfect question for you, and it's the same question I posed to Liberal last week. And you got to listen. You got to listen to the show. But the question is, would you tag it? Listen to the show, and you'll understand the question. I posed a completely hypothetical situation to a Liberal, and he came up with a clear, concise, conservative response.
Outstanding. Hey, are you gonna check out that Nimitz document?
Yeah, I saw that earlier in the week, and I haven't been able to download it yet because every time I go to the site, it's down. But I'm
better now.
I went on tonight during the show, and it was down.
Although now I got it here at the studio. When I was able to download it first thing Tuesday morning, I was able to download the entire PDF at one time. Now you have to log in or register to get the entire PDF, or else you have to download it chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, but
I'd be interested. I'd be interested in seeing what his notes are on Midway, because he took a lot of heat with his choice of Spruance when Halsey got sick.
It's in there. Everything is in there.
Yeah. Yeah,
right,
it's going to be some. Well, I'll let you guys go.
Thanks, Rooster.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Saturday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, here on Blog Talk Radio. Listen to Outcry Radio. Check them out at conservativeoutcry.net. Rooster, thank you so much, sir.
Hey, have a good night, guys.
You too, bud. Well, somehow we salvaged another winner. From the brinks of destruction, we brought it back, and we had another kick-ass show.
We pretty much nailed it.
Hey, that's true professionals right there. I couldn't even get through it.
You couldn't.
Thank you, everyone, so much.
Our experiment worked. I told you our listeners would stick with us.
I know, and you know what? This proved that we have some pretty kick-ass listeners. Thank you very much for listening, our listeners. We'll be back next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, 11 on the East. Check us out at sackheadsradio.com and follow us on Twitter, please, at Sackheads. We're Sackhead Sacco and Sackhead Clint. This is Sackhead Sean. Thank you very much.
Night, America.
Night, America. The hell with it. Hell, 5 million ain't all that bad now, is it?
5 million ain't all that bad. Where's somebody's ass? They didn't slap somebody's ass. Pass me that beer.